Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Stronger California Advocates Network end of session webinar. We are very excited to be here today with you. We're going to give it just 15 seconds because I see attendees are joining. So we'll give it 15 seconds before we officially get started. Okay, so we're going to get started. A few pointers before we get started with the substance of our webinar. The webinar will be recorded and it will be available to you to listen to and watch after. We will also send some follow-up materials to the participants and those who signed up who weren't able to actually join live, of which there were several who informed me that they couldn't listen live but wanted to hear the presentation after. So you'll get the webinar recording as well as follow-up materials about how you can support all of these important policies. So those are kind of the announcements for today. I want to just welcome everyone to the Stronger California Advocates Network webinar. You're going to hear about our amazing 2021 priorities, the status of those bills, and some wins we've already celebrated since the beginning of the year, and then also how you can get engaged to support all these important priorities going forward as we enter the kind of final stretch of these bills in the legislative session. So we're going to start off with a quick overview of Stronger California. These are our amazing speakers who I'll be introducing as we go. And then we won't go through all of these, but we wanted to make sure people were aware of all of our roundtable members. So these are organizations that are centrally involved in our work as a coalition. They're also available on our website, so you can take your time to look at these amazing advocates. And then our broader network of network supporters, which is another layer of organizations who are committed to supporting the Stronger California agenda. And then, of course, we have our community of even broader supporters, including all of you who support these bills as they make their way through session. So as an overview, Stronger California, we came together in 2015, and the idea was to advance economic security for women and families and really all Californians. And we take a comprehensive approach to economic security. Instead of just looking at it as a single issue problem, we look at all of the kind of myriad obstacles that women and people across genders and families across the state face in achieving economic security. So we structure our legislative agenda every year around three main pillars. They're listed here today. The first is to ensure fair pay, also job opportunities to get into higher paying jobs and workplace justice. The second pillar is to expand access to affordable and quality childcare and early education. Third pillar is supporting family-friendly workplaces. And then the fourth pillar is building economic security by fighting poverty and also helping to build assets. And you'll hear from some of our amazing pillar leads who are presenting today. And we're also going to get some shout outs to other pillar leads who are involved in leading these advocacy efforts in each of these kind of four priority areas. So a bit about how we engage to advance these priorities. We have a network of organizations spanning across the state who represent millions of Californians collectively and come together to support legislation that, while it may not be their specific issue area, they understand the importance to supporting a cross-sector approach and an intersectional approach to ensuring economic security for women and families. For those reasons, you will see Stronger California Advocates members, such as domestic worker leaders, advocating in support of an equal pay bill or child care bill. And you'll see child care parent leaders advocating in support of an anti-poverty bill or a leave bill. So we have an intersectional approach to really show that there is a broad base of support for these policies and that they're needed across the board. And some of the ways in which our members support these policies are through sending letters of support, contacting legislators, providing support in committee hearings, amplifying messages on social media to show the importance of these policies, and then attending rallies and lobby days at the Capitol or in recent times through Zoom meetings, which are equally important. And we invite everyone who's participating today, even if you're not yet a Stronger California member, to join us, and you'll hear a bit more about how you can do that later in the presentation. So we're not going to go through all of our past wins, but needless to say, over the last 4 years, we have celebrated incredible wins on all of our pillars. And as I said, you will receive a copy of this PowerPoint. You can also check out our website to look at all of our wins, but we wanted to provide a quick overview of some of them here today. On the first pillar, fair pay and workplace justice, we helped to pass the California Fair Pay Act. We passed the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights in 2016 to ensure permanent overtime protection for domestic workers, and a number of equal pay and other sexual harassment prevention bills. On the next pillar, some of our wins include for childcare, often led by our amazing pillar leads, Parent Voices, Child Care Law Center, and other Child Care Resource Network. We achieved a bill that provides child care assistance for parents who are taking ESL and GED courses. We supported the collective bargaining for child care providers. That was a huge win after many years of organizing. And over the years, we have secured billions of dollars in budget allocations to support child care assistance, led by our amazing leaders at Child Care Law Center and Parent Voices. Finally, last year, we helped to eliminate some of the barriers that exist for child care in CalWORKs. On our family-friendly workplaces pillar, led by our amazing pillar leads, the California Work and Family Coalition and Legal Aid at Work, among others, we have helped to pass bills to expand access to paid family leave, to get the strongest lactation accommodations in the country, to ensure better rates and higher rates of paid family leave for those who are taking time off, and you'll hear about a continuing effort this year in that area. And then expansion of our kin care law so that people are able to take time off to address domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and family care emergencies. And then on our final pillar, combating poverty and building assets, we've secured protections for domestic violence survivors in CalWORKs. We joined the effort, a multi-year effort, to repeal the incredibly harmful maximum family grant rule that was incredibly harmful and punitive for CalWORKs families. We fought to get a bill passed to ensure protections against predatory lending, the establishment of Cali ITC, and a prior bill to ensure menstrual products in Title I schools, which we are going to excited to talk about, an ongoing effort in that area we'll discuss later in this program. And then last year, we were very happy to support the effort to extend Cali ITC to immigrant filers, and we have secured a budget allocations for SSI and SSP to ensure more of a living rate for those Californians who are receiving SSI and SSP assistance. So with that, we're going to turn to our 2021 priorities, and I'm going to first turn it over to the amazing Jennifer Greppy, who is the statewide lead chapter organizer for Parent Voices and one of our pillar leads on the child care pillar, to talk about our 2021 wins and priorities.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so exciting to be here with all of you to share some of the really important and critical childcare victories that we had this year, as well as talk about some of the really important next steps that we will all have together. And so this year, childcare, we all sort of began to learn and understand that childcare was a critical need for us to make it through the pandemic. In order for families to be able to stay at home, to shelter in place, and to stay safe, and to make sure that their children were safe during their distance learning, we knew that childcare was such an important part of that landscape, right? And so in this last year's fight, we all came together to really make sure that parents and providers work together to create a system that would really support all women and all families in the workplace. And what that looked like was we were able to secure lots of additional federal funds for childcare, nearly $5 billion, which was incredible way for California to be able to create some of the long-standing wins that we've been waiting to implement for generations. So this pandemic, while it has been an extremely hard challenge for so many families, it also was an incredible opportunity for us to move childcare forward and for it to become something that everyone understood and realized was such an important part of our economy, right? And the ability for all of us to succeed during this really challenging time. We were able to have some really incredible budget wins this year. I think it's really important to talk about the fact that parents, mostly women of color, Black and Brown families who are most at risk of not having access to childcare, they were really the ones that were in the forefront of fighting for these incredible policies. And I really want to shout out those parents and the providers who really worked together to make sure that these wins happened. And so we were able to secure 120,000 new childcare slots. And that might not sound like a lot, but currently in California, we have about 60,000 childcare slots or vouchers for childcare. And so this is tripling the amount of childcare available to families. And our waiting list of hundreds of thousands of children was just reduced by 120,000, which is a huge victory. And so let's all celebrate those wins. We also were able to increase childcare provider rates. This is something that, providers have not had a raise since 2016. They are making poverty wages, and they have sacrificed literally their life in order to take care of our children during this pandemic. And the parents and the providers, we came together, we made a decision together that this would be the year that we took those additional dollars that we got from the federal government to raise those rates, to make sure that they were making a living wage, that we were able to get their rates increased for the first time in many, many years. And that became the priority, not just of the providers, but of the parents too. They wanted to make sure that the providers that were taking care of their children who are sacrificing so much, that they were able to get that raise and to get that increase. We were also able to get an increase for our exempt providers who were making as little as $2 an hour, which is criminal. And so finally, we're making some progress and we're looking forward to that, to increase over the next several years. We were also able to freeze family fees for all families for 1 full year, which means that families are saving between $40 and $500 a month for their family. This is an incredible way to put money back in the pockets of our lowest income families so that they can use that money to expand their security and to be able to pay for additional food costs, gas costs, and other utilities. Finally, I want to talk about AB 92, which is a bill to freeze family fees, not just for 1 year, but for good, and to really come up with a permanent solution to be able to implement an equitable family fee schedule that will not harm families and that will really begin to heal the harms that have been caused by this racist policy for far too long. So we really look forward to continuing that bill in the next bill cycle. We did decide to stop the bill, to make it a 2-year bill. We did that intentionally because we knew we didn't have the money in the budget to do it this year. We knew there was no harm to families because family fees are waived for this next year. And we wanted to make sure that those dollars that would have been spent to make this equitable family fee schedule this year, that they were actually spent to make sure that providers got the rate increase that they deserved. And so we all look forward to working with you all next year to make sure that family fee, become no more, right? And that families can have access to those funds in their budget every year, and that we can end those racist policies that are holding our families back. So thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing the fight with all of you. And from parents and providers, we really look forward to doing that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to the amazing advocacy that you and the other amazing parent leaders in Parent Voices, some of whom are here today, have led on this pillar. We're so grateful to you, as well as the other organizations that help to lead this work, who are part of Stronger California, including the Child Care Law Center, the Child Care Resource Center. We're really lucky to have you leading us in the fight. Next, we're going to move on to our priorities on the Supporting Family-Friendly Workplaces pillar, and I get to introduce Angelica Andrade, who is the Spanish Training Coordinator and Administrative Assistant for the California Work and Family Coalition, to talk about one of our priorities on this pillar. So I'll turn it to you, Angelica.
Thank you, Jessica. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Angelica Andrade, and I'm with the California Work and Family Coalition. We are a statewide coalition dedicated to helping parents, caregivers, and families thrive. And today I'm here to give an update on AB 123, which is the Paid Family Leave Weekly Benefit Amount Bill that was introduced by Assemblymember Gonzalez. So what does this bill plan to do? AB 123 would increase the wage replacement rate for paid family leave and state disability insurance to 90%. So our current wage replacement rate is 60 to 70% of one's wages, 70% being for the low wage workers. And just a little background on the wage replacement rate, before 2016, the wage replacement rate was at 55%. But in 2016, AB 908 was passed, which increased the wage replacement to what we currently have now. In fact, at the beginning of this year, AB 908 was expected to sunset. So in other words, expire. But coalition members and advocates really fought to protect our current wage replacement, and we succeeded. So we got to keep our 60 to 70% wages. However, it is very obvious that many California residents are already struggling with the 100% of their paychecks. So in our reality, no one can really afford to live on 60 or 70% of their wages. And also, our expenses do not go down when we take leave, and they most likely will go higher. So it is very important to increase these rates. And oftentimes, the low wage replacement rate is the most significant barrier that impacts families from taking paid family leave, especially for low wage workers. And no one should, be faced with having to choose between making ends meet and taking care of themselves, bonding with a new child, or taking care of a family member. And we also know that paid leave saves lives. It also increases breastfeeding, chest feeding rates, and it allows individuals to be there with their families when they most need it. So again, it is very important to increase the wage replacement rates to at least 90%, if not even higher, so workers can access these programs and actually benefit from them. And as for where the bill is currently at right now, it is on the suspense file. And I think that, with the legislative session moving very fast and everything is just still in the works, all I can really say about this is that we will continue to advocate for an increase in the wage replacement rates for paid family leave and SDI, because we do know how impactful this could be to families in California. So if you are interested in getting involved with the coalition to advocate for AB 123, please feel free to reach out, because we need all the help we can get to increase these rates. So thank you.
Thank you, Angelica. Great. So we're going to turn now to another priority bill on our family-friendly workplaces pillar. I want to give a huge shout out to a lot of co-sponsors on this bill who are all also part of Stronger California, including the California Employment Lawyers Association, Legal Aid at Work, and Equality California. This bill essentially addresses an inequity in our leave laws in California, which, as many of you all know and have directly experienced, our laws that allow workers to take time off to care for a sick relative or to take care of a baby only apply to certain family members, meaning you can only take leave to care for a certain limited list of family members. This often has a disproportionate impact on certain communities. So for example, in the LGBTQ community, studies have demonstrated that often LGBTQ individuals rely on other networks, on either chosen family, people who aren't related by blood or legal relationship, or others to care for them when they are sick or when they need medical care. Other communities, such as immigrant communities and others who live in intergenerational households, may live with an uncle or an aunt or a cousin who is very close to them and for whom they need to take leave, but under our current law, that more extended family is not covered for our leave laws. So our leave laws really reflect this kind of more outdated nuclear family structure that just doesn't match the reality of a lot of Californians today. So we in California working on this bill, AB 1041, led by Assemblymember Wicks, that would expand the definition of family member for purposes of both our family leave law, which is the California Family Rights Act, as well as our paid sick leave laws, both of which allow workers to take time off and have protected time off, meaning they can't get fired, to care for a sick family member. And this would specifically allow workers to take time off for a designated person. So that would be a person, whoever they want it to be, a loved one who isn't covered, a family member who isn't covered by our current leave laws, a best friend, a roommate, etc., to take care of them. They can designate that family member at the time they need the leave. They would tell their employer, this is my designated person, and the employer can limit that to be one person per year. So this bill for us is critical in that it follows the lead of other states that have already proactively expanded their definition of family member, understanding that it needs to be broader in recognition of today's kind of current family structures and people that workers rely on. And we really hope that we can count on your support to move it forward. We will, as I mentioned, be following up with everyone about how to support all of these bills as they make it into their final stretch. And before we turn to the next pillar, I just want to acknowledge some of our amazing pillar leads. In addition to the California Work and Family Coalition, Legal Aid at Work has been an incredible leader on this pillar to move the work forward on some of the wins that you've heard about and these current priorities that we're talking about today. So now we're going to move on to the final pillar, which is the fair pay, job opportunities, and workplace justice pillar. I am really excited to introduce our presenters today. So we'll start with Kim Alvarenga. She is the director of the California Domestic Workers Coalition and an amazing ally in so much of our work. So I'll turn it to Kim to talk about one of our priorities this year on this pillar. We can go to the next slide.
There we go. Yeah, thank you, Jessica, and thank you to all of the Stronger California Network. Yes, I'll be talking today about SB 321, the Health and Safety for All Workers Act, which is authored and championed by Senator Maria Elena Durazo. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge all the work that's been done and support by co-sponsors of this bill. I want to acknowledge Equal Rights Advocates, CELA, the California Employment Lawyers Association, WorkSafe, and CIPC for all their hard work on this issue. The goal of the Health and Safety for All Workers Act was really to tackle and do away with the historic exclusion of domestic workers from basic occupational health and safety laws. Many of you know that there are very few industries that are still excluded from basic OSHA laws. And domestic workers is one of those industries. And in the middle of this worldwide pandemic of COVID and the ongoing wildfires, where we saw domestic workers and heard many of our members being told stories of them being told to water down stables during wildfires, not being informed that the people that they were caring for had COVID, and not having any guidelines whatsoever or standards to protect them. This became our number one issue. So we've been working very hard to address that issue. Again, Where we're at with this bill, you know, we've had strong showing in the legislature, no opposition at this point. And we feel at this point we're at the appropriations committee in the assembly, but through dialogue with the administration and continued dialogue with our stakeholders, we've decided to make an amendment on the bill. And what the bill currently will do, based on our amendments, is take an important first step to getting rights for domestic workers under occupational health and safety laws. And that first step will be to actually create a committee that the chief of Cal OSHA will actually create a committee that will, of stakeholders that will actually create the guidelines for the domestic worker industry. And make sure that every voice is included in this process. And hopefully we are really excited about this being the first ever time that domestic workers are actually going to be mentioned under Cal OSHA and have guidelines to address health and safety issues for themselves and the employers at the same time. And we believe this will be an important first step in that path and in that journey. And our next step will actually be after that. We hope that you all join us to make sure that these guidelines that are going to be voluntary in the beginning will eventually have teeth, and we'll be able to create standards from those guidelines. And so that's our update. We look forward to continuing to organize with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you to the amazing work that you and all the domestic worker leaders and the Domestic Worker Coalition have done to move all of these priorities forward. It's an ongoing fight, and we're excited to be with you in it. So next, I get to introduce Daisy Gonzalez, who is the Organizing Director for the Garment Worker Center. And she's going to talk about another of our priority bills and how you all can support. So I'll turn it to you, Daisy.
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, everybody. I want to start off saying thank you as well for everyone who has, sent in letters of support, supported in signing our petition, which, I'll talk about in a few minutes. Our bill, is continuing to move forward. We were just in Sacramento 2 days ago with our members for Lobby Day. Yeah, everyone, is still very, very excited about this campaign. So thank you to everyone for your support. I'll just share, this bill is really coming from workers and, Garment Worker Center members who have been experiencing wage theft for decades. We, in our membership have seen that workers can make as low as $2.72 per hour. On average, it's $6 per hour. And a lot of this wage theft comes for two reasons. One is that workers are paid a piece rate. They're paid a couple of cents per operation made on a garment. It can be as low as 1 cent. And, it varies, per garment, but, 10 or 15 cents sometimes. And these workers are, they're skilled laborers, right? They operate industrial machinery and are not, making what they truly deserve. They're not even making minimum wage. So what SB 62 is going to do, and SB 62 is principally authored by Senator Durazo, and the other principal co-authors are Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez and Ash Kalra. What this bill will do is expand and strengthen enforcement of wage theft liability. So we're asking for up the chain liability up to the brands. We've had so many experiences with garment workers filing wage claims and not ensuring that the brands that actually make millions of dollars off of their labor, pay for the wages that they've had stolen, right? And we know from so many, previous studies, including one from the Department of Labor, that showed that, wage theft really stems from the top of the supply chain. Brands are not paying enough for the production of the clothing for workers at, subcontracted factories to even make minimum wage. And because of that, we have actually been able to get 150 fashion businesses and fashion organizations to support our bill to stand with workers. And these include manufacturers and brands, manufacturers who have also experienced brands not paying enough for production, and brands who want to operate in California's garment industry and not be associated with sweatshop conditions. We have brands who want to move their production here to California, but we want to ensure that this is an ethical industry. The other thing that this bill is going to do is eliminate that piece rate pay for garment workers. And this will ensure that workers are paid a legal wage. It will also just still continue to allow an incentive-based bonus. If X number of pieces are produced, there are still incentives. The bill will also create a rebuttable presumption as to the identities of the brands based on garment workers' testimony, and will also allow the Labor Commissioner's Bureau of Field Enforcement to investigate and cite brand guarantors. This bill is especially important to workers right now because they were actually deemed essential workers throughout the pandemic. They were operating, they were working in factories throughout the pandemic, producing our face coverings, producing hospital robes. So, they were making PPE, still experiencing wage theft, facing, in sweatshop conditions in 2021, right, in California. And they, even experienced COVID outbreaks at their workplaces, all while making our PPE and not making what they deserve. So I want to, share in the chat. You can still endorse the bill if you haven't. We're still asking for organizations to endorse the bill, and we're still collecting petition signatures. On Wednesday, we were able to deliver 22,471 signatures to the governor's office in support of SB 62. And we're also asking that you continue to call your assembly members and ask them to support this bill. The bill is on the suspense file in the Appropriations Committee and will be voted on the 26th, August 26th. And the next steps are the full assembly vote, and our bill will be on the governor's desk. So thank you everyone for your support.
Thank you, Daisy, and just huge shout out to you and all the workers who are really leading this effort. It is completely a worker-led bill, and anyone who heard the worker testimony in any of the committee hearings last year and then again this year knows how important this bill is and how important a fight it is, a real civil rights fight. So thank you for keeping the fight going both last year and this year. And we will share information about signing the petition as well as other support with everyone on this webinar. Great. Next, I have the honor of introducing Mariko Yoshihara. She is the Legislative Director for the California Employment Lawyers Association, one of the pillar leads on this pillar, and she's going to talk about our final priority bill on this pillar. So I'll turn it to you, Mariko.
Thank you, Jessica. Hi, everyone. So this bill, I'm really excited to be able to work on. It's the Silence No More Act, and it sort of builds upon two really important Me Too inspired reform measures that we passed in 2018. So the first part deals with secret settlements, and this was really inspired by two former Pinterest employees, Black women who raised concerns about discrimination in the workplace. And eventually they settled their case. And because, again, some of the reform measures we passed in 2018 to ban secret settlements, they had some protections from the NDA. So meaning that the NDA could not cover their gender-based discrimination claims, but it actually still could cover their race discrimination claims. So again, in 2018, we passed legislation to ban secret settlements for sex discrimination, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. And so now what our bill does is expand that all out to cover all forms of harassment or discrimination, because as you know, the story of these Pinterest workers really show is that you really can't separate out your gender, from your race, or any form of identities. We're multidimensional people. So it recognizes intersectionality in the terms of the experiences that we face in the workplace. And it also recognizes that race discrimination, discrimination based on disability, age, any protected status really is just as harmful and pernicious as sex discrimination and sexual harassment. The second part of the bill deals with severances, and another type of silencing mechanism that we see employers using more and more often. So in 2018, we addressed this issue for current employees who were forced to sign overly broad non-disparagement confidentiality clauses that were basically, again, very confusing. So it had the effect of essentially silencing workers who wanted to speak out about harassment or discrimination. As you can imagine, if you experienced harassment and you wanted to speak out, there's this whole question of, does that disparage the person who harassed me? Does that disparage the company where I was harassed? And so what we did in 2018 was make it absolutely clear that a non-disparagement clause or any type of confidentiality clause could not silence workers about talking about unlawful activity, including harassment or discrimination. So this bill now extends those protections out to cover severance agreements. And this also was inspired by real life true events. We know in 2020, last year, we were going through a pandemic. A lot of people were getting laid off. At the same time, we are having mass protests in the street around racism and racial justice issues. And, there were questions about workers having to sign these severance agreements as they were getting laid off with again, very broad non-disparagement confidentiality clauses. And the whole question again became, does this mean that I can't talk about my own experience of harassment or discrimination that I experienced again while I was at this company? And so the second part of this bill, again, we were just making absolutely clear that any non-disparagement agreement that now workers may have to sign as a condition of getting a severance cannot mean that that worker can't talk about their own experience with any unlawful conduct, but especially we're making it clear that that covers harassment or discrimination. So really, again, this is about empowering, allowing workers to speak out. We know that when workers speak, other people join them. That's how we can really effectuate true change. That's how we can hold perpetrators and companies accountable. Again, during 2020, there were companies talking about instituting a lot of reforms. During Me Too, we heard that too. And so again, if workers aren't able to speak and actually hold those companies to account in terms of what they're saying they're doing to do right by their workers and have a fair and healthy and equitable workplace, we obviously need to make sure that those workers are able to speak out. So right now, this bill is on the assembly floor, and we're hoping to get it passed next week. It has to go back to the Senate for a concurrence vote, and then hopefully we get to the governor's desk within a month. And I just want to give a shout out to Equal Rights Advocates also as a co-sponsor of this bill. And it's been such an honor and privilege to be able to work with the actual former Pinterest employee, Ifeoma Ozoma. And she also is a co-sponsor in this bill and has just been a true inspiration as we try to get this bill past the finish line.
Thank you, Mariko. Before we turn to our final pillar, I want to just give a shout out to the amazing Stronger California Advocates Network members who support all of this work but play a key role in this fair pay and workplace justice pillar. So I want to just acknowledge Work Equity, the Women's Foundation of California, the California Women's Law Center, and AAUW, who have been incredible leaders on this pillar. And I also want to acknowledge some of our broader network of network supporters who have supported so many of these priorities through social media and through lobby visits, and they include the National Women's Political Caucus of California, the Friends Committee on Legislation of California, and many others. And we will remind you all of how you can become a network supporter if your organization is not yet one at the end of this webinar. So I'm going to now turn to the final pillar, which is combating poverty by building assets. And I will introduce our first speaker, who is Aditi, who is an attorney at the ACLU of Southern California, Aditi Fruitwala, and she's going to cover our priority bill on this pillar. Aditi, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm really sorry that I'm not on video right now. My internet just cut out, so I'm joining by phone. So sorry for that. Sorry for that hiccup. Again, my name is Aditi Fruitwala. I'm with the ACLU of Southern California with the LGBTQ Gender Equity Reproductive Justice team. And I'm here to present on AB 367, the Menstrual Equity for All Act. This bill is co-sponsored by ACLU, California Action, Black Women for Wellness, the California Latinas for Reproductive Justice, and several organizations focusing on period poverty. So current law requires that menstrual products be provided for free in the restrooms of Title I schools, which are schools in which 40% of students live below the federal poverty line. And while this is a really good start, the reality is that it doesn't cover all the students who need free menstrual products. 25% of California students who live below the federal poverty line don't attend Title I schools. And for these students, after their families pay for rent, food, and other bills, there's often not much money for pads and tampons. And this problem might seem somewhat small. It's just that students need tampons and pads, but the impact of it is extensive. So there's a few that I want to highlight today. The first is education and access to opportunities. When students are on their period and don't have pads or tampons, it impacts their ability to stay focused and learn. And for many, it actually impacts their ability to come to school at all. 1 in 5 girls report not being able to afford pads or tampons. And 1 in 4 girls report having missed class or school altogether because they didn't have access to pads or tampons. And this stat keeps true when you get to the college and university level. A study from UC Davis showed that 52% of people who menstruate said that they missed class in the last year because they didn't have pads or tampons. Missing even a few days of school can lead to significant gaps in learning and opportunity. And if we're serious about pulling young girls out of poverty and giving them access to education, we have to provide them with free menstrual products so that they can do so. The second impact that I want to uplift is that this is not just a temporary thing when they're in school. This actually impacts their long-term engagement into adulthood. This type of absenteeism early in life has been shown to lead to social disengagement and alienation even into adulthood. And we all kind of know the feeling of when you're falling behind a little, it's easy to fall behind a lot because it gets harder and harder and harder to catch up. And we see that with when girls start skipping school when they're on their periods, that gap just grows and grows. And the last impact I want to highlight is health. A lack of period products isn't just embarrassing or uncomfortable, it's a real dangerous risk to someone's health. Because people who don't have period products are forced to reuse products or keep products in for longer than they're intended. And not changing a pad or tampon frequently enough can lead to bacterial growth, reproductive tract infections, UTIs, abdominal pain, and it increases the risk of cervical cancer. These are very serious, dangerous medical complications that can arise just from not having enough pads or tampons. So AB 367 seeks to fix this problem. It does 2 things. The first is that it requires free pads and tampons in all public and charter schools, covering grades 6 through 12. And it requires those pads and tampons in all women's restrooms, all gender or gender neutral restrooms, and at least 1 men's restroom. The second thing it does, it requires free pads and tampons in at least 1 location at a CSU and California community colleges, and the location has to be somewhere that all students can access. The status of this bill is that it's on the suspense file. It will be heard on August 26th. And right now we are really asking for letters of support when it gets to the Senate floor. This bill kind of flew through the assembly pretty quickly, but we think we're going to have a little bit more of a fight on the Senate side because we've received more opposition from schools concerned about the financial aspect of this. And so we're really hoping to get some letters of support when it gets to the Senate floor. And that's it. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for your leadership on this bill and so many other areas, as well as the ACLU and all the co-sponsors. So now we've heard about the 2021 priorities. We're going to talk a little bit about how you all can get engaged in supporting them as they get across the finish line, and then we'll turn to some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat, And I'll now turn it to my colleague, Monica Demersky, a policy fellow here at Equal Rights Advocates, to talk about some opportunities to engage.
Okay, hi everyone. So before we wrap up, now that you've heard about all these really important issues and bills, we want to make sure you know how to actually get involved with those moving forward. So the first step is going to the Strong California website, which is here, strongcalifornia.org, to see all of our past legislative agendas and also what we're working on this year. And there's also updates there to get involved with different bills that are happening this session. We'll also have a lot of community education events like this webinar. We usually do a wrap-up webinar at the end of session as well to kind of debrief what we went through this year and what's upcoming next year. There's also a ton of ways to get involved in social media. So we do a lot of big advocacy pushes on social media. Make sure that you get involved with us on there. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the above. And also, if you want to join us as a network supporter or a roundtable member and you're not already involved, please email myself, that's my email there, and also Jessica to let us know you're interested. We can talk to you about what it just means to even be a network supporter, what does that look like, and then if you still want to be involved, we can get you involved, and all that's coming up. So thank you so much for your advocacy.
Thank you, Monica. And I just, on that note, want to just acknowledge that in addition to the amazing Stronger California Roundtable members and network supporters, some of whom we've talked about on this webinar and given a shout out, we also have a really amazing Stronger California leadership circle of individuals who are just so committed to these issues and not only talk the talk, but walk the walk, showing up in our lobby visits and supporting these important priorities on social media, sending in letters, making calls. So I want to thank that leadership circle for all that they do every day to support these priorities. As you heard, you can get involved if you're not yet. The website is on the chat, so you can sign up. We had a goal to get you all out of here early because we are hearing loud and clear that there is a lot of Zoom fatigue, but we do want to offer any additional time for questions that people might have. Some of them have already been answered, but I want to just reiterate, because this question came up a few times, what the suspense file means. And essentially what it means is if a bill is on suspense in appropriations, there will be a suspense hearing that will determine whether the bill gets out of suspense and out of that committee so that it can then move on to its full floor vote. And all of the bills that you heard about today, except for one, the NDA bill, SB 331, which is already on the floor, they're all on suspense, either appropriations or, either Senate or Assembly. So when we follow up with information, we will follow up with ways that you can contact members of the appropriations committees to urge them to get the bill off of suspense, as well as the opportunity to support the bills in other ways, such as the petition in support of the Garment Worker Protection Act, and a take action that you can use to contact your legislators in support of the NDA bill, as well as other support mechanisms. So I want to just give everyone a chance, if there are any other questions, to put them in the chat now. I see one. Some of these bill support programs that mean small amount of money per person, like $50 per month. However, it would be great to have the arguments at hand to demonstrate why these small amounts are so critical. So that is a great point. Thank you, Sarah, for raising it. When we send out our take actions on the variety of bills that we have, we'll include talking points so that if you do want to call your legislators, which is importantly, very important, so please do, we'll include talking points about why the bills are important, and in the situation of money, why what may seem to be a small amount is actually can be even life-changing for the workers or community members who are impacted by it. So thank you for raising that, and we'll make sure to include talking points on that, as well as the broader bill talking points. Okay, I'm just gonna see if we have any other questions in the chat or in the Q&A. I think we've gotten to them. So we're going to keep our promise with ending this webinar slightly early, keeping it shorter. We have one more. Oh, thank you, Dale, for the shout out. Really appreciated having all of our key Stronger California members participating as both panelists, but also as attendees. Thank you to everyone for the support that you've given to these bills, both leading them and supporting them throughout the session. It's, needless to say, been a rough few years, and getting to participate in this type of advocacy with such an amazing network of supporters in Stronger California and leaders is really just an honor. So thank you everyone for participating in our webinar today. We will follow up with information about how to support these policies going forward. I want to give one final shout out to the California Budget and Policy Center, which pretty much all of us rely on to help understand the scope of the problem and how we can use policies to fix it. So that's a final shout out to that center who provides all of us with very important data in our policy advocacy. And with that, we're going to close the webinar. We look forward to seeing you in lobby visits and online supporting our bills. And we look forward to celebrating all of their passage and signing by the end of the year so that we can move into a better year going forward. Thank you, everyone.